All right. Hey guys, give me a sec. Just making sure everything is showing up. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Let's see. I do see myself. All right. Let's see. Give me a sec here, guys. I'm just trying to make sure I have everything before I start this thing off. Awesome. All right. I see it. Making sure it's showing up on YouTube and TikTok and every place else, LinkedIn. All right. All right, guys, I want to say thank you again for taking your time out of your busy schedule on joining my 5-minute-ish Fridays. Just for everybody that's new, my goal is to every Friday at noon. Sometimes it's, depending on what's going on, but for the most part, noon Eastern Standard Time on Friday, I have these little 5-minute-ish discussions, like real estate mortgage notes, investing, if talking to private lenders and things like that. So today's topic is really why I choose notes over rentals. And just to start with some stats, the average landlord spends 47 and a half hours per year managing just one rental. Now, just think about that. That's more than a whole work week per property. And that's according to Porch.com. And just imagine if you had 20, 30, 50 properties, most average landlords, they don't utilize a property manager to manage these. They self-manage, and, I used to self-manage my properties. And then on the note side, notes are 100% scalable and sellable. You can sell the whole note or part of a note, in other words, a partial, and still keep income flowing. The things that I really love about notes is you use a third party servicer. They're the middle person between you and the borrower. They send out the 1098s. They have that conversations with the borrowers when things do go sideways, and then you can also instruct your servicer to go ahead and you sign the power of attorneys and everything like that. Then you can just go ahead and start the foreclosure process. So for the most part, it is a passive form of income, but you do have to manage, but not quite the way that you typically do it with rentals. So, like I was saying, I'm just going to kind of go over why I choose notes over rentals. Your mileage may vary, and depending on your goals, that's why you need to speak with a financial planner. Because notes aren't the end all be all. You can use buy properties to depreciate it, to write things off. But this is just why I choose notes over rentals. And once again, as I start off everything, I'm not a financial planner or a CPA. This video is for educational purposes only. This is not investment, tax, or legal advice. This is just what I do on my business. Please consult with a qualified professional for advice. Your financial planners, your CPAs, and your attorneys, they have your best interests at heart. Any information that you listen to, just always vet it, run it by a professional, professional person, like I said, an attorney, a CPA, or a financial planner. That'll help you make sure that these things fit in your overall financial plan. So with that, what everyone tells you about rentals: buy and hold for passive income, tenants pay your mortgage, real estate always goes up. What they don't tell you is the 2 a.m. maintenance calls. Been there, done that. Evictions and turnovers. I've had quite a bit of those. And then the property management headaches. There towards the latter end, when I had a lot of properties, I was using property managers. But once again, for me, it was, there was a lot of management with managing the property managers. So, you have give and take. And the other thing is, you're responsible on the property. You're responsible now on mortgage notes too. I can touch on this a little bit, but on the property, you're responsible for taxes, insurance, repairs, basically just eating into your profit. But on the converse side with mortgage notes, if you have a contract for deed, if you bought a contract for deed mortgage, your company name is on that title, so you will be responsible for the taxes on that. And then also, if you have just a mortgage or a deed of trust, you're not responsible for the taxes. But if your borrower stops paying those taxes, there will be a tax lien sale. And ultimately, if you want to protect your investment, you will pay for those taxes. But you'll realize that when you go to sell it, you get the property back in foreclosure or do a deed in lieu, cash for keys, you will ultimately recoup that money. So, how I found mortgage notes, it all began with a second mortgage I never meant to own. This was my second property that I bought. My goal back then was I would buy these properties, fix them up, and then rehab them and either sell them, lease option them, keep them as rentals, rent them to Section 8 tenants, and things like that. And this was a particular property here in Cincinnati that was my second property that I bought, and I actually sold, but the borrower did not have strong enough credit to get a first mortgage. He was only qualified for so much. I wound up taking a second mortgage, and then ultimately I wound up selling that second mortgage on the secondary note market. And I truly took a bath on it because I don't know now what knew what I should have known then regarding these mortgages. So, and that's kind of like that's where it kind of shifted for me. And I realized I could be the bank instead of the landlord, and notes offer the same collateral without the tenants. You depending on your goals, but my goal is to be the bank. That's the banks. They just they lend money on these assets and they don't own them, right? So, and that's why I made that switch from owning the properties to just owning debt. So here's a little chart that I put together, notes versus rental. One column I have feature, rental, and then notes, rental versus notes. The feature, monthly income. For rental is just straight rent, right? For notes, it's a loan payment. So, you have a promissory note, and for so many years, the interest rate. So this is the money, both instances, this is the money coming in, but it is a loan payment on the notes. The responsibility on the rental, it falls to the landlord for any maintenance, anything, upkeep, and things like that. For the most part, with the notes, if you're buying like a mortgage or a deed of trust, then that falls on the borrower, like the upkeep and things like that. But if it's, a contract for deed, and that's the thing, like a mortgage and deed of trust, if they're not upkeeping the property, you personally won't get tagged with the lien or like a notification on it. That borrower will get tagged. Now, if you had a contract for deed, same thing with the rental. If you have an agreement where the borrower and or the tenant is supposed to cut the grass, and if they're not, then the city will come up and then they'll start fining you, or when I say you and or your company personally. Repairs, it falls on the landlord. Repairs on a mortgage falls on the borrower. And the rate of return, the REI type for rentals, it's equity and cash flow. And then notes, it's yield plus the collateral. And when I say the collateral, the property is the collateral, right? So you have a promissory note, that's all that is an IOU. And then you have a mortgage, which is the security instrument tying that asset to the promissory note. So if something were to happen, if they stop making payments, the borrower that is, if they stop making payments, then you can either do a deed in lieu, cash for keys, the shortcut to foreclosure, or you can just go ahead and just start the foreclosure process. And then ultimately you will get that asset back. And then that's where you can decide to keep it as a rental, keep it as a Section 8, or just fix it up and sell it. I tend to not hold on to them anymore, just because the notes are a lot less headache for me. My favorite advantages, you're close to being truly passive with monthly income. And when I say close to being passive, you still have to check in. I do this once a month. I'll just log into the back end portal on my servicers, just make sure that everything is looking good. And then if the borrower's behind, or they skipped a payment, or or something's going on, then I'll just reach out to the servicer. 9 times out of 10, the servicers are already reaching out to me, letting me know. And then the other thing is all my servicers within my agreements, where I already have things outlined to where if they go 90 days on the 91st day late, I have all the checks and balances to send out the demand letter, uh, you know, working with an attorney to go ahead and start the foreclosure process on that asset. So it's more passive than owning rentals are. It's backed by real estate. I only buy first lien mortgages. I do not buy second liens. I get a lot of people, a lot of sellers asking me to buy second liens. I don't buy seconds. I only deal in first mortgages. I want to be in the first position. It's predictable cash flow, and it's flexible. You can buy and sell these mortgage notes to other mortgage note investors. And then the other cool thing about it is you can sell only a partial of that mortgage note. For example, if you had a $100,000 mortgage that you purchased, for say $80,000 at 10%, they're making X amount of payments to you, and just say, for example, you only need $20,000 for you need something fixed on your car. Well, you can sell that $20,000 of that note, which may equate to like maybe the next 3 to 5 years worth of payments, and then after that, after that 60th payment, it reverts back to you. So, and what I'll do, I can on the next 5 minute ish Fridays, I can do a go over a partial, because a lot of people, a lot of note investors, and a lot of people, they just don't really understand partials. They are very powerful. I buy a lot of partials, by the way, as well. Every investment has risks. Default risk, the borrower stops paying. But like I was saying before, it's secured by the asset. So if that's the case, excuse me, then you can go ahead and foreclose on the property. And then as a side note, I had a 5 minute ish Friday that I did on due diligence. That's you always, whenever you buy these mortgage notes, please, 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 I implore you, I beg of you to always do your due diligence. Always look at the collateral file. Make sure you have all the assignment of mortgages, all the allonges, or if you're buying a contract for deed, the seller of beneficial interest, and also the deed. Just make sure everything, from when it starts to when you're buying it, you have everything in that chain documented. And then if you do not understand it, please reach out to an attorney. Yep, it's going to cost you money, but it $500 to $1,000 up front versus something that when you buy this note, and if some things do go sideways on it, 5-10 years down the road, you're just totally left with something that you can't do with anything with. So just please always do your due diligence up front. And you need to, like I was saying before, you need to understand the collateral and paperwork. Always go through everything just to make sure. And then liquidity is lower than stocks. In my opinion, I don't play the stock market. I got out of playing the stock market. I think I can predict the returns. I can adjust the payments the offers that I make on these mortgage notes to the returns that I want to make. So that's why, in my opinion, mortgage notes in real estate beats the stock market. I feel like I'm that old, that office, Bears beat Battlestar Galactica, right? When Jim said that to Dwight, just my opinion, notes beat the stock market and the volatility of it all day long. My first note deal, as an example, I bought a $35,000 or a $50,000 note for $35,000. Borrower's paying $400 a month, and I'm earning a 10.5% net annual yield. So this isn't gross. This is net. This is what I actually walked, and what I'm still currently walking away with. That's the other thing, you always have to take into account the servicing costs, unless it's explicitly spelled out in the promissory note that the borrower is paying that. If I don't see it, I'm always assuming that I have to pay the servicing costs, and that ranges anywhere between $15 to $35 for performing, like $70 to $90 for non-performing. So you have to take all that into account. So on this deal that I bought, I'm earning a 10.5% net annual yield, which is really good. And the last slide, excuse me, is while I'll never go back. I do not get I having having those rentals, the tenants and the toilets and the turnover. It was a nightmare. I mean, for me, I remember being at one of my rentals where I had a tenant moving in, and I was physically rehabbing it, and I just went upstairs and I finished putting in a valve on the bathtub, soldered everything in, and then as they were moving in, they're running the water and everything, and I'm in the basement putting some linoleum down, and then I'm underneath there, and I felt this drip on my neck, and it was the water. I was just, and what I did was I didn't solder it right. I was just in a hurry to get everything done, and that's why I just had that drip on my neck, and that's when I was done. I was just 100% done with the tenants and the toilets and the trash outs. And like I said, that's why I made that switch over to mortgage notes. I can control my yield, not my tenant's mood. So essentially, when I'm buying these mortgages, right, if you want 11% yield, then you make your offer based off 11% net. You have to account for the servicing costs, and obviously you look at the pay history and the collateral and your investment, the value. So all that stuff comes in, but I can control my yield and what I want to make on that particular investment. It's scalable income without scaling stress. Like I initially talked about before, I can scale my notes, and this would be something that's easy to, if something were to happen to me, it'll revert, all the payments will revert over to my wife and my family, and the servicers, I already have it in there to where the servicers will get in contact if they ever need to be. Um, it's 100% more scalable, in my opinion, than what it would be with rentals. And that is all. I don't know if there are any questions. Give me a sec. Let me look. I don't see anything. Man, I got quite a amount of viewers on here. And if you did find this helpful, if you do have questions, you can just post them in the chat or on the video feed, either on LinkedIn or YouTube or TikTok. And I'll see it. I'll reply. And or if you want to shoot me a question at larry@ljhinvestments.com, you can email it there, or you can text me 513-301-1468. Or if you just want to schedule a 30-minute call, you can schedule a call with me, talkwithlarryhoffman.com. And then I just released a book. It's called Mailbox Money Retirement. Turn IOUs into passive income that you can count on. You can find that on Amazon. It just walks you through, soup to nuts on retirement, and then it actually has a really good case study there using paper stack to just finding a note. It actually walks you through from A to Z on evaluating that note and making an offer on it. So this is something you can 100% do. So hang on a second. Let me revert to this one here. Let me get in that camera. There we go. So if you have any questions, just shoot me a text message or schedule a 30-minute call, talkwithlarryhoffman.com, and I'll answer anything. Maybe you have a question on mortgage notes or just real estate investing, or you have something, maybe you have a question on becoming a private lender where you can earn above average returns secured by real estate, backed by these assets. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm not seeing anything. Give me a sec. All right. Yep. I'm not seeing anything. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it. You guys have a great Friday and have a safe and happy